Hello, everyone. Very happy New Year to all of you. So, let us start with our discussion today on macrolides, that is erythromycin. Erythromycin was discovered in 1952, and McGuire and co workers from Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly is a pharmaceutical company, and Eli Lilly's research team was led by McGuire, who isolated the erythromycin from a fungus, that is the Streptomyces erythraeus. So erythromycin is widely used for respiratory tract infections and variety of infections which are caused by the gram-positive cocci, such as the Streptococcus pneumoniae, Streptococcus pyogenes, and Staphylococcus, as well as atypical organisms like the Mycoplasma pneumoniae, Legionella, and intracellular pathogens like the Chlamydia. As alternative to penicillin, as we know, penicillin is a beta-lactam antibiotic available since 1941. This was the first antibiotic. And although it was safe drug, except the hypersensitivity reaction, which occurs with the penicillin. Therefore, there was also a need for alternative drugs in the patients who are allergic to the penicillin. So we know penicillin came up in 1941, and after that also, if you see the other beta-lactam like cephalosporins, they were introduced later after 1964. So in between, we can see the introduction of erythromycin in 1952. This was a major breakthrough in antimicrobial therapy and a good alternative drug to the penicillin. So it's the safest and very effective drug, and it is also listed in the WHO list of essential medicines. So we can see erythromycin among the macrolides. Erythromycin was introduced in 1952, and after that, spiramycin is also a macrolide introduced in 1955. And among the newer macrolides, these were clarithromycin, azithromycin, and roxithromycin. This was introduced between 1970 and 1980 and 1987. So during the period from 1970 to 1987, we have these three macrolides and a newer macrolide, that is telithromycin, which is a ketolide introduced in 2004. So these newer macrolides, these are semi-synthetic derivatives of this erythromycin, and they happen to be better tolerated, as well as they have broader spectrum of activity, and because of which there is a increase in the use of these newer macrolides. And also these newer macrolides, they are increasingly being used for upper respiratory tract infection as well as the lower respiratory tract infections. And these drugs like azithromycin and clarithromycin, they are also effective against organisms like Moraxella catarrhalis and H. influenzae. And these two organisms, they've been reported worldwide to be responsible for the reports of the resistant respiratory tract infections. So these are the organisms which are taken care of by the azithromycin and clarithromycin. So we'll discuss the newer macrolides in the next class in detail. So this is the list of the different macrolides. So erythromycin was introduced in 1952. The macrolides, if you see the chemical structure, these are antibiotics which are having the macrocyclic lactone ring, that is many membered lactone ring, and with the attached sugars. So in the diagram, you can see on one side there is the macrocyclic lactone ring. The name macrolides, they are named because of the large lactone ring. So on one side you can see the macrocyclic lactone ring, and on the other side you can see the attached to this ring, attached to the macrocyclic lactone ring, you can see one or more deoxy sugars. So these sugars are the desosamine and cladinose. So these sugars, deoxy sugars, they are attached on the other side. So erythromycin is a 14-membered ring structure, and it is less water soluble. So it is poorly soluble in water, but it dissolves in the organic solvents. Also, the solution is stable in cold. So solutions are stable at 4 degrees centigrade, but the activity is lost at 20 degrees centigrade. and at the acidic pH. So erythromycin is usually dispensed as various esters and salts. Now let us see the mechanism of action of erythromycin. Now these drugs, erythromycin is a bacteriostatic at low concentration, but it is bactericidal at high concentration for the susceptible organism. It accumulates more in the gram positive than the gram negative bacteria. So the gram positive organisms accumulate about 100 times more erythromycin than the gram negative organisms. Then erythromycin is more active in the alkaline medium. As we can see that erythromycin is, it is the antimicrobial activity is enhanced in the alkaline pH. So in the alkaline pH, the non-ionized form, the penetrable form of the drug is enhanced at the higher pH, that is in the alkaline medium. And this unionized form or the non-ionized form of the drug, it readily enters into the cell. So this is facilitated by the alkaline pH. So the non-ionized form is enhanced, and therefore there is more penetration of the drug in the alkaline medium. It acts by inhibiting the bacterial protein synthesis, and it binds irreversibly to a site on the 50S subunit of the ribosome and interferes with the translocation step. So you remember this diagram. Here we can see the structure and composition of the bacterial cell, which differs from the mammalian cell. This makes it possible for the drugs to act on such structures and enzymes so that the drugs, they will have selective action on the bacteria and they will be less toxic to the human beings. So antimicrobial drugs, they target different sites on the bacterial cell. Like we can see drugs acting on the cell wall. You can see the beta lactams, they inhibit the synthesis of the cell wall. Then drugs acting on the cell membrane, like you can see the fungicidal drugs like amphotericin B, they will alter the permeability of the cell membrane, leading to leakage of the cell contents. Then drugs like sulfonamides, they interfere with the metabolic pathway of the bacteria. They will block the enzymes which are involved in the folic acid synthesis, and thereby they will interfere with the bacterial growth and multiplication. Then also we can see some antimicrobial drugs which are interfering with the nucleic acid synthesis. Either they will be inhibiting the DNA dependent RNA polymerase like the rifampicin, or they will inhibit the DNA gyrase enzyme, drugs like the quinolones. So we can see that there are several antimicrobial drugs which are also acting by interfering with the protein synthesis. And the bacterial ribosome, it has the 50S and the 30S subunit which are involved in the protein synthesis. So in the diagram you can see that there is inhibition of the at the 30S ribosomal site. So drugs like tetracycline, aminoglycosides, they will interfere with the 30S ribosome and thereby they will inhibit the protein synthesis. On the other hand, you can see drugs like macrolides and chloramphenicol, they are acting as peptidyl transferase inhibitors. So they basically act on the 50S ribosome and they will inhibit the protein synthesis. So we can see the site of action of the macrolides in this diagram. It is very clear that they act on the 50S ribosome. So here it is clearly delineated that erythromycin, they will bind reversibly. They will bind reversibly with the 50S ribosome, and erythromycin interferes with translocation, prevents the transfer of the peptide chain from A site to the P site. So what happens is when the transfer of the peptide chain from A site to P site is prevented, then the A site is not available for binding the next amino acid. So without this translocation, if the peptide chain is not translocated from the A site to the P site, so without this translocation, the A site will remain occupied. It will not be empty, and if it is not empty, then the transfer RNA cannot get the new amino acid and cannot attach it in this particular site. So what will happen? Because the A site remains occupied, so the translocation is prevented and the peptide chain from A site to the P site is prevented here. So this will interfere with the production of the proteins, and therefore inhibition of protein synthesis will take place, and this is the basis of antimicrobial action of the erythromycin. So in the diagram it is very clear, the A site and the P site is there, and you can see the particular peptide chain which has to ideally get transferred from A site to P site. This is being prevented by the macrolides. So macrolides prevent the translocation step, and thereby they inhibit the protein synthesis. So you can check my earlier videos on protein synthesis inhibitor antibiotics mechanism of action. So many of the concepts will be clear. So there I have already discussed about the protein synthesis, the different steps of the protein synthesis in the microorganisms. So that video you can go through, and many of the concepts will be clear for you. But here quickly let us see what is going on in the bacterial protein synthesis. So in the first stage we can see the stage of initiation. So here you can see the mRNA which is transcribed from the DNA. It binds to the 30S ribosomal subunit, attracts the transfer RNA to the A site, which is the initiator codon, that is the AUG. So 50S ribosome is then added to form the complete initiation complex. So what happens is multiple cycles of binding of the transfer RNA to the A site. This is the initiation, then peptide bond formation, that is elongation, and translocation. This will occur repeatedly. So initiation, elongation, and translocation will take place repeatedly, and this will lead to the chain elongation. Now, during the stage of peptide chain elongation and translocation, so first step is the initiation, stage of initiation, then you can see the chain elongation, peptide bond formation taking place, and then the translocation step. So here you can see after the peptide bond formation has taken place, in the third diagram you can see the peptide bond formation has taken place between the newly attached amino acid and the newly attached amino acid. You can see at the A side already is there, and in the A side the peptide chain from the P side that has got transferred. So the peptide bond formation takes place between the newly attached amino acid and the peptide chain at the A side, at the A side. That so the elongated peptide chain, now this is there at the A side. So this elongated peptide chain is translocated back to the P side, that is the peptidyl side. So A side is the acceptor side. So we can see that in the first step the initiation complex has taken place. In the second step you can see the amino acid has been attached to the A side, and in the third step you can see the peptide chain is transferred from the P side to the A side, isn't it? And that is the peptide bond formation. So then after this we can see the step of the translocation taking place, in which the peptide elongated peptide is translocated from the A side to the P side, isn't it? So this is the, so macrolides, they prevent this particular step, that is the translocation step, and where the peptide chain, it has to translocate from the A side to the P side. So because this translocation is being prevented by macrolides, so the ribosome then fails to move along the mRNA to so this site is not available. So the A site is blocked already, and this A site is not available for the new this transfer RNA to get the new amino acid to this particular site. So the ribosome fails to move along the mRNA to expose the next codon, and the peptide chain prematurely, there is termination of the peptide chain, and synthesis of the proteins, they are suppressed. So this is how there is the inhibition of the protein synthesis by the macrolides. Now if you see the antimicrobial spectrum, the erythromycin has an antibacterial spectrum which is resembling that of the penicillin. So it's a narrow spectrum, and it has mainly it is effective against the gram-positive cocci like the pneumococci, streptococci, staphylococci, then the corynebacteria and all. And so besides this also this is effective against a few gram-negative organisms such as the Neisseria, then the Bordetella pertussis, Rickettsia, Treponema pallidum, Campylobacter species, Legionella. So few species gram negative, they are also sensitive, and certain organisms like the Mycoplasma, then Chlamydia, and as well as Helicobacter, Listeria, and also certain mycobacteria like the Mycobacteria kansasi and Mycobacteria scrophulaeum. They are also susceptible. And as far as gram negative organisms are concerned, H. influenza is less susceptible. Now, coming to the pattern of resistance, erythromycin develops resistance due to any of the four mechanisms. We can see here, one of the mechanism is the efflux of drug by the active pump. So many of the cocci, they have become resistant, like the staphylococci, group A streptococci, and the streptococcus pneumoniae, as well as by alteration in the ribosomal binding site by the plasmid encoded methylase enzyme. Plasmid is one mechanism of development of resistance, because these plasmids, these are small DNA molecules, and these plasmids, they carry the genes which provide the bacteria with the this genetic information like the antimicrobial resistance. So if there is plasmid encoded methylase enzyme, so this is the second mechanism of development of resistance, and this is an important mechanism for resistance development in the gram positive bacteria. So the methylase, it modifies the ribosomal target of the macrolides, and it can lead to decreased drug binding. So we can see that the gram positive bacteria, they develop resistance due to either the active efflux or by the methylase production. Then also there is production of esterases by the resistant Enterobacteriaceae. And another mechanism is alteration in the 50S ribosome by chromosomal mutation by the gram positive cocci and Campylobacter. And this alteration in 50S ribosome by the chromosomal mutation, it leads to reduced macrolide binding affinity. Then we can see there can be cross resistance also between the macrolides. This is common. And cross resistance with clindamycin and chloramphenicol, it also takes place. And this is basically the binding site of macrolide and clindamycin and chloramphenicol. They are in close proximity, and these binding sites are overlapping each other. So they share the same ribosomal binding site, that is the 50S ribosome. And because of this, there can be the cross resistance also. Then there is another MLS type B resistance, macrolide lincosamide streptogramin B resistance. And what is this MLS type B resistance? There is also the constitutive methylase production. The methylase production is there. So constitutive methylase production, this can also cause the cross resistance to from which is there with macrolides. It can produce cross resistance to clindamycin and streptogramin B. That is known as the MLS type B resistance. Basically, clindamycin and streptogramin B, they are structurally unrelated to the macrolides, but mechanically, because they are having overlapping site that is lying in close proximity, so in the same ribosomal subunit, so the same binding site is there. Because of that, although they are structurally unrelated, but mechanically, because of similarity, so this type of resistance is seen, cross resistance. Coming to the pharmacokinetics, erythromycin is acid labile, so it is partially destroyed by the gastric juice, and because of this, it must be administered as enteric coated tablets. And food delays is absorption, so the food interferes with this absorption. And another thing is, it is destroyed by the gastric juice, but it is because it is mainly absorbed from the small intestine. And in the small intestine, we know that there is the alkaline pH. So the non-ionized form of the drug is favored in the alkaline pH. Also, the acid stable esters are better absorbed. So erythromycin, because it is acid labile, so it must be administered as enteric coated tablets or in the form of certain esters. So these esters are better absorbed. And erythromycin estolate, this is one of the best absorbed oral preparation. Also, It readily diffuses into the body fluids and it is widely distributed in the body. It also crosses the placenta and passes into the fetal circulation. And but the penetration in the CNS is poor, so it does not cross the blood-brain barrier, although it is having a wide distribution in the body. 70 to 80% of the drug is plasma protein bound, and it is mostly it is metabolized by the liver and it is excreted in the bile. So large amount of the drug is excreted in the bile and in the feces. And if you see, as far as the kidneys are concerned, there is no requirement of dose alteration in renal failure because only 5% of the drug is excreted in the urine. So mostly this drug is metabolized by the liver. The T half, plasma T half is about 1.5 hour, although erythromycin persists for a longer time in the tissues. And one thing is about the erythromycin is we follow a 6-hourly interval is advocated to maintain the blood levels, because peak level of drug is reached within 2 to 4 hours and the levels decline between 6 to 8 hours. So what, to maintain the adequate blood levels, we follow the 6-hour interval. Now these are the different preparations and dose of erythromycin. Erythromycin can be given orally as well as by IV injections, and although here we follow more of the oral doses of the erythromycin, and the parenteral forms are also available in different parts of the world. It's although not available in India. And the oral form, like oral base form, it's enteric coated and it is available as 250 and 500 milligram. So the dose, adult dose is about 250 to 500 milligrams 6-hourly. And in children, we give 30 to 60 milligram per kg per day in 4 divided doses. The erythromycin base is destroyed by the stomach acid, and therefore it must be administered as an enteric coated tablet. And as far as the estrolate is concerned, I already told you that this is the best absorbed oral preparation. And as far as stearates and the esters, different stearates as well as ethyl succinate, so these are fairly acid resistant and also they are somewhat better absorbed orally. And as far as erythromycin estrolate is concerned, although it is absorbed, well absorbed, and it is we get a very high and more prolonged blood level than the other preparation. So it is one of the best absorbed oral preparation, but it also poses some adverse effects, and therefore sometimes we prefer to use the stearate or the succinate salt. Then coming to the parenteral preparations like erythromycin glucaptide and erythromycin lactobionate, which can be given by the intravenous parenteral injections. So when medication cannot be taken orally, then we prefer to give the parenteral preparation. And also when we want to achieve a higher plasma concentration. This is basically we are using IV injections for severe pneumonia, especially due to the Legionella. Then there are certain ointment like the Jerry ointment, 30% of the erythromycin. This is marketed for the topical use in treatment of some boils, carbuncles, and skin infections. And there is some ophthalmic ointment also, erythromycin 0.5%. So this eye ointment, it is recommended sometimes to prevent the eye infection in the newborn just after the delivery. So we can see that erythromycin oral preparations, they are available as enteric coated tablets, slow release capsules, oral suspensions, and we can see also the topical preparation like the ophthalmic ointments, and also parenteral injections are available. And basically we are using more of the oral preparations of erythromycin, and parenteral route is mostly avoided because the intramuscular injections of erythromycin is painful, so it is not used. And the IV route, we are using it for some severe infections, especially severe pneumonia due to the Legionella, and but the IV route also causes frequent thrombophlebitis. So these are the different preparations of the erythromycin. Then Coming to the adverse effects of erythromycin, this is generally a safe drug and it is also useful in those patients who are allergic to penicillin. Also, it is a safe drug in pregnancy, but there are certain common side effects, like in gastrointestinal tract, we have the epigastric pain and abdominal cramps, nausea, anorexia, vomiting, diarrhea. So these gastrointestinal adverse effects are there. Then a word about the motilin receptors. Now, discovery of these motilin receptors was based on frequent occurrence of the gastrointestinal side effects with the use of the this particular antibiotic, that is erythromycin. So erythromycin, it causes motilin receptor activation. And what is this motilin? Motilin is a potent contractile agent. It is a peptide hormone which is found in the gastrointestinal cells of the upper GIT, and many of the times the motilin receptors, they are also found in the smooth muscle cells. So the prokinetic effect of the motilin is mimicked by the erythromycin, because what happens, erythromycin is causing motilin receptor activation, so it increases the smooth muscle contraction, and by this it increases the lower esophageal pressure, and it also stimulates the gastric and the small bowel contractility. So it acts as a motilin receptor, causes motilin receptor activation, and because of this, most of the gastrointestinal side effects, frequent occurrence of these side effects, are attributed to this particular receptors and the activation of the motilin. So secondly, there is the reversible hearing impairment, transient auditory impairment. This can occur with the high doses of the oral astrolate, erythromycin astrolate, or the IV preparations. Then hypersensitivity or allergic reactions, like the this rashes, eosinophilia, and fever. So these are the allergic reactions. But there can be occurrence of the hepatitis, and we know the astrolate ester, erythromycin astrolate. This is an acid stable and it is resistant to the gastric acid. It is also very well absorbed orally, but also there is higher occurrence of these adverse effects, and because of hepatotoxicity, it should not be used for the prolonged period. And so this hepatitis, it is the acute cholestatic hepatitis, which is seen. So this probably it is because of the allergic manifestation, and usually this hepatitis, it clears within few days after discontinuation of therapy, and mostly there is pain. There is the acute cholecystitis. The pain mimics this acute cholecystitis. So it is a type of acute cholestatic hepatitis, which the pain mimics the acute cholecystitis, and this pain is again, along with the pain, there is the nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, jaundice, and fever. So erythromycin, relatively, it is contraindicated in the hepatic dysfunction. So drug interactions. Erythromycin is we know very well, it is an enzyme inhibitor drug, and there are different drug interactions because it will inhibit the metabolism of other drugs which are given along with it. So it will increase the levels of drugs like the other drugs which are given along with the erythromycin. So the drug level will be increased because the metabolism will be reduced. So levels of ketoconazole, theophylline, carbamazepine, cyclosporin, digoxin, warfarin. So these levels of valproate, ergotamine, the levels will be increased and leading to toxicity. Erythromycin will increase the serum concentration of oral digoxin, and this concentration is increased because the inhibition of the metabolism is there, and the viability of the digoxin is increased because of this. So this could lead to toxicity. Then also inhibition of the cytochrome 3A4 enzyme. So along with erythromycin, certain other drugs concurrently, when they are given along with the erythromycin, like terfenadine, estimizole, cisapride, these drugs have been banned because along with erythromycin, because erythromycin is an enzyme inhibitor drug, it can lead to QT prolongation, ventricular arrhythmias, and death. Also, there can be interference with the action of chloramphenicol and clindamycin, because we know very well the binding site of erythromycin, clindamycin, and chloramphenicol, they are in close proximity and overlapping each other in the 50S ribosome. So, because of this, there can be interference with the action of other drugs like chloramphenicol and clindamycin. Also, physical and chemical incompatibility can take place with parenteral forms of the erythromycin. So, with those parenteral injections of erythromycin, if this can react, there can be physical and chemical incompatibility with other drugs like vitamin B complex, ascorbic acid, tetracyclines, heparin, phenytoin. So, coming to the uses of the macrolides, and you can see the uses of erythromycin. The first use is as in Mycoplasma pneumoniae infection. Erythromycin is very useful in treatment of the this community acquired pneumonia, because spectrum of activity includes the pneumococcus, Mycoplasma, and the Legionella. Also, if the oral dose, if it is not tolerated, then the IV preparations can also be given, and this can reduce the duration of the fever, which is caused by the Mycoplasma pneumoniae. Then in Legionnaires disease, erythromycin is useful, as well as other macrolides like azithromycin is also a drug of choice for treatment of pneumonia, which is caused by the Legionella pneumophila. So in Legionnaires disease, this is the macrolides are very useful, and these agents they are having the excellent lung tissue penetration, as well as they have the intracellular activity against the Legionella. Then in chlamydial infections, in neonatal, ocular, genital chlamydial infections, the macrolides, they are useful. In diphtheria, erythromycin is a drug of choice in the cornybacterial infections like the diphtheria, as well as the cornybacterial sepsis. Then in pertussis, erythromycin is drug of choice for treatment of the Bordetella pertussis, and also for treating the post-exposure prophylaxis of the close contacts. It also shortens the duration of the illness. Then coming to this streptococcal infection and staphylococcal infections. Staphylococcal infection, if it is susceptible, then as an alternative to penicillin, the erythromycin is a good choice in treating the streptococcal infection as well as the staphylococcal infection. In Campylobacter infection, erythromycin is useful for treatment of the Campylobacter jejuni gastroenteritis in the children. In Helicobacter pylori infection, macrolides, among them clarithromycin along with proton pump inhibitors, they are the choice of drug in Helicobacter pylori infection, where clarithromycin can be given as a dose of 500 milligram twice daily for 2 weeks. In tetanus, erythromycin 500 milligram 6 hourly given for 10 days. It is very useful to eradicate the Clostridium tetani, and it is useful in patients who are allergic to the penicillin. In syphilis, as well as in sexually transmitted diseases like the non-gonococcal urethritis and chancroid due to the Haemophilus ducrei and lymphogranuloma venereum. So those patients of syphilis who are allergic to the penicillin, erythromycin is given 4 times a day on an empty stomach. And also in non-gonococcal urethritis, non-specific urethritis due to the chlamydia trachomatis, and chancroid due to the Haemophilus ducrei also, and lymphogranuloma venereum, all these which are caused by the chlamydia. Also, the erythromycin is useful, as well as azithromycin is a choice of drug in the chlamydial infections. Then in mycobacterial infections, in MAC infections, in mycobacterial avium complex infections, azithromycin and clarithromycin among the macrolides are useful. In other infections, like the toxoplasmosis, encephalitis, and in diarrhea in the AIDS patients, which is caused by Cryptosporidium. Also, certain skin infections, the dermatologists, they are using the erythromycin for the acne, for rosacea, erythema, and infections such as the impetigo or boils. And also in the prophylaxis in rheumatic fever, erythromycin is recommended as a prophylaxis. Also, and in the rheumatic fever and bacterial endocarditis, and also during in patients in especially in those individuals with the valvular heart disease. So it's a useful drug as a prophylaxis also. Now we come to the last part of this discussion on the macrolides, that is erythromycin, and now we discuss about spiramycin. The oral form was available since 1955 and the parenteral form has come in 1987. Though it was available, it is used sporadically. It is a macrolide antibiotic and antiparasitic, and it is used to treat the toxoplasmosis and various other infections of the soft tissue. In spiramycin reduces the risk of the transplacental transmission of the Toxoplasma gondii infection, and it has a special use for prevention of toxoplasmosis and recurrent abortion in the pregnant woman. The other indications are similar to erythromycin, and the side effects are gastric irritation, nausea, diarrhea, and rashes. And the oral forms, the dosage is about 1 to 2 grams, that is about 3 to 6 international units 3 times a day. And for severe infections, the injections 1.5 international unit, slowly it is injected in the vein every 8 hourly. And rectal suppositories containing about 750 milligram of the dose. So 2 to 3 suppositories per day can be used. Also in the newborn, about 250 milligram, that is about 0.65 international units per 5 kg body weight can be given once per day. So to conclude, we can see the macrolides. They are used to treat a wide variety of bacterial infections. Erythromycin is useful for respiratory tract infections, skin infections, chlamydial infections, as well as in the treatment of syphilis. And as an alternative for patients who are allergic to the beta lactams, those patients who are allergic to penicillin. So this is an alternative drug, as erythromycin is useful in treating infections caused by staphylococci, streptococci, pneumococci. So in streptococcal pharyngitis, upper respiratory tract infections which are caused by the pneumococci. And it is in rheumatic fever also, where penicillin is the drug of choice. Here also, so those patients who are allergic to the beta lactams, so erythromycin is the alternative drug also in the rheumatic fever and also in subacute bacterial endocarditis due to the Streptococcus viridans. Erythromycin is also useful to eradicate the diphtheria carriers, and we can give a treatment for 10 days. And erythromycin is also useful in tetanus, in syphilis, as well as in gonorrhea. So as an alternative to penicillin, it can be used in a wide number of conditions. Erythromycin is also the drug of choice in Mycoplasma pneumoniae and in whooping cough. So in the treatment of Bordetella pertussis, erythromycin is effective in eradicating the Bordetella pertussis from the upper respiratory tract. Also, there are certain other uses of erythromycin, like diarrhea due to the Campylobacter jejuni. So Campylobacter jejuni gastroenteritis. Here fluoroquinolones are superior drugs, although erythromycin also second choice drugs. Then in treatment of acne, 2 to 3% is used topically as a lotion, gel, cream, or ointment for treatment of the acne. And also in refractory periodontitis, erythromycin is effective in resistant cases of the periodontitis. Also as non-chemotherapeutic use in diabetic gastroparesis because of the, remember the pro-motility effect. Here we know that erythromycin is used to facilitate the gut motility. So it is used to facilitate the peristalsis in cases of the diabetic gastroparesis, because erythromycin will stimulate the gut motility by acting on the motilin receptors. It causes motilin receptor activation. We have already discussed about that. So erythromycin will hasten the gastric emptying and it will promote the intestinal motility. Other than this, erythromycin has also been oral erythromycin base about 1 gram. It is combined sometimes with oral neomycin for the pre-operative preparation of the colon. And last but not the least, intravenous erythromycin may also be used in endoscopy to help the clearing of the stomach contents.